Hello and welcome to the Middle East Forum Speaker Webinar Series and Podcast. I'm Stacey Roman and I will be moderating this discussion today. We are pleased to have Mohamed Farid, who has been a member of Egyptian Senate since 2020 and with a special interest in human rights and co-founder of the Liberal Club of Cairo, join us to discuss China and Egypt and the Middle East. Mr. Farid will speak for 15 minutes and open it up for questions. Should you wish to ask a question, please use the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen to type your question. And with that, I'll turn the discussion over to Mr. Mohamed Farid.
Stacey, thank you very much. I'm honored and pleased to be among you here today, and thank you for hosting me. I'd like today to talk to you about China and the Chinese influence in Egypt. And this influence, as we're going through the two, you will see it's not just about the economic sphere, but it also goes far beyond that. In order to understand and to get a grasp of the situation with China and the relation with China, we have to delve a little bit deep to the history. Egypt was the first Arab and African country to establish relationship with the People's Republic of China. That was back in 1956. And in that year, China had supported Egypt during this Suez crisis. And for the younger generation, this was, we call it the tripartite aggression, where Great Britain, France, and Israel try to occupy Sinai and Suez Canal. Right after that, the relation with China continued to grow and prosper, as both Egypt and China were part of what's called by that time the non-alignment move, which emerged as counterweight during the Cold War between the US from one side and the Soviet Union from the side alignment. And despite the political transformation Egypt has undergone over the past half-century, relation with Beijing remained with an importance to Egypt foreign policy, and a clear evidence for that right after the 2011 revolution, when the Muslim Brotherhood came to power in 2012. President Morsi, by that time, visited China, and after the 2013 revolution, and when President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi came to power, he also visited China shortly right after his inauguration. Parallel to that, with the ascent of Xi Jinping power to China to power, and with the launch of the Belt and Road Initiative in 2013, this further solidified the ties between China and Egypt. In 2014, the two countries signed a strategic partnership agreement, pledging cooperation in defense, technology, economy, counterterrorism, cybercrime prevention. And during Xi Jinping's visit to Egypt in 2016, an additional 21 agreements were signed, including significant investments of $15 billion in various projects. Chinese investment has surged recent years, while, on the contrary, the US investments have experienced a decline. From 2017 to 2022, China investment in Egypt skyrocketed by an impressive 317%, while the US investment decreased by 31%. The Central Bank of Egypt data reveals that China now holds the largest share of Egypt imports, accounting for 10.1% of value, of around $3 billion. Meanwhile, the United States ranks the fourth exporter of goods and commodities to Egypt, with a share of 6.2%, equivalent to approximately $1.2 billion. China emerged as Egypt's second largest trading partner, just behind the United Arab Emirates, while the United States lags behind that in third place. And speaking of the ranking, China also holds the third largest bilateral creditor to Egypt, and responsible for about 5% of Egypt external debt. This comes right after the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. and even larger than Kuwait and Qatar. This is for the external debt. Back again to investments, China investments have particularly focused on infrastructure, construction projects, especially in the new cities, and on top of it, of course, the new capital. One notable example for that is the iconic tower in the new administrative capital, a project that is executed by China's state construction engineering company and cost up to $3 billion. And according to the Chinese ambassador in Egypt, who is a very active one, and he said that the Belt and Road Initiative aligns closely with Egypt Vision 2030, an ambitious development plan launched by President Sisi. In the trade between Egypt and China has experienced unprecedented growth during the past 5 years. Egypt imports from China doubled from approximately $8 billion to in 2017 to almost $14.5 billion in 2022. Parallel to that, the exports increased from almost $700 million in 2017 to $1.8 billion in the past year. This growth is an evident in value of trade exchange between two countries, which reached almost $15 billion in the first 11 months of 2022, compared to $14.5 billion during the same period in 2021, which meaning an increase of about 2.6%. Basically, the exports of China to Egypt primarily consist of machinery, electric appliance, boilers, mechanical tools, chemicals, cars, tractor, bicycle, iron, name it. Yet, the China influence in Egypt transcends from the economic venture. It has extended into the cultural sphere and beyond that. The China propaganda found a platform in Egyptian media, including the government-owned outlets, which have become a mouthpiece for CCP, China Communist Party narratives. While some major sources focus on highlights on the US violations of human rights, the same sources absolutely say nothing when it comes to the China violations and mass treatment of its population, like the continued and systematic violation against the Uyghur Muslim communities. And nonetheless, that the effort to engage with Egypt have continued, and China effort to engage with next generation and emerging leaders and administrators in Egypt have been extensive. A large-scale training programs have been offered to government and executive leadership throughout Egypt, covering various fields such as healthcare, technical education, e-commerce, farming, modern irrigation technology, city planning, green energy transformation. According to the Ministry of Cooperation, International Cooperation, the Egyptian Ministry of International Cooperation, that they have cooperated closely with China Ministry of Commerce in organizing approximately 55 virtual training sessions in 2021 alone. Moreover, the Ministry of International Cooperation facilitates several programs for Egyptians to pursue master's and doctoral degrees from Chinese universities and educational institutions. Over the past 4 years, more than 1,100 training programs have been conducted in cooperation with China, benefiting over 4,000 Egyptian government employees. China also established a network of relation with Egyptian political parties, transcending ideological boundaries. The Chinese embassy in Egypt regularly hold meetings and functions and events with Egyptian political parties to strengthen their cooperation with the CCP. These engagements are not confined to socialist or leftist party, but span nearly to the entire political spectrum. Additionally, the CCP International Liaison Department organizes meetings and functions with in China with the Egyptian political parties, allowing them to interact with senior level Chinese counterparts. The Chinese ambassador in Egypt regularly contributes articles widely read Egyptian newspapers, serving as an effective channel spreading CCP propaganda and shaping public opinion fostering positive views of China and fostering oppositional attitudes toward the West, especially in the United States. It's noteworthy that during these days, actually, I guess yesterday or the day before, the fourth dialogue conference between the CCP and the Arab political parties had concluded in China, and there was a delegation of several Egyptian political parties, and it varies. They are not only socialist or communist parties, but it varies, and some of the nationalists, the umbrella, even described as liberal parties, was participating there from Egypt and also from all over the Arab world. And it's also worth mentioning that there is current cooperation taking place between China and Egypt in the space technology, and there is sensing satellite that are being financed by China. And the testing was just took place a week ago, 10 days ago, and there are a lot of news coverage from that and a lot of promises of increasing and deepening the cooperation in the space technology. The soft power of China established also in the cultural field. The Confucius Institute, which was founded in Cairo University in 2007. The institute aims to teach the Egyptian scholars the Chinese language and share Chinese culture. Its director, Cairo, was recently recognized as the best director among 500 branches and 3,600 directors of Confucius Institutes worldwide. China propaganda efforts have been successful in effacing objective realities in the mind of the Egyptian public. For instance, Chinese messaging has propagated a multifaceted conspiracy theory concerning the role of the United States and Israel in supporting Ethiopia Grand Renaissance Dam, a project that poses a significant threat to Egypt's water resources. Curiously, China has an active role in supporting the GERD, the Ethiopian Dam, and other dams alongside the Nile Basin. And these have been largely ignored by the general public. China has provided $1.2 billion in building electrical power lines from the dam to Ethiopian cities, and additional $1.8 billion to enhance Ethiopia's renewable energy resources. Chinese companies such as Zero Hydro have been played a leading role in the construction of the dam. However, these facts have been noticeably absent from the Egyptian media narratives. One area of particular concern, rapid growth is in the rapid growth in the telecommunications sector. In Egypt was welcome to controversial Chinese companies, Dawa and Hikvision, which not only have its ties to CCP, but have been implicated in recent reports on the global expansion of surveillance networks that pose grave threat to privacy and security. Although countries like Vietnam, the United States have a large share of cameras of Dawa and Hikvision, Egypt ranks 54th worldwide with approximately 25,000 surveillance camera systems employing both Dawa or Hikvision equipment. Furthermore, the majority of routers in Egypt are of Chinese manufacturer. Telecom Egypt, for example, the largest telecommunication company, provides and employs its USB modems and G4G routers, all of Chinese origin, especially from companies like ZTE and Huawei. While Egypt may argue it seeks to strike balance between largest powers, to serve its best interests, a country must be cautious about the risks of over dependence on China and the potential impact of its foreign relations. China involvement is in sensitive areas as the Grand Renaissance Dam and its control over all its trial to control over the Egyptian cyberspace have raised concerns with Cairo itself. And we must be aware of potential risks of overdependence and implications of broader intervention when it comes to cybersecurity. And the growing influence of China poses, in my perspective, or in my belief, a significant threat to U.S. Economic interest, and it's really I can't get a proper term to describe it, but it's really concerning because looking at the expansion of China influence all over the different aspects of whether economic, education, cultural, political, and enhancing and improving this narrative is I believe, on the long term, will be very harming to interests, both Egyptian and American interests in the region. And it could threaten the peace and stability. Let's not forget that the influence and the role of China when it comes to the Russian invasion to Ukraine, and let's not forget the support that China gives to countries like Iran and other countries that have a major threat of the world peace. In conclusion, it's crucial for Egypt and the United States and their allies carefully navigate the multi-step nature of China influence in Egypt. While economic benefits may seem appealing and important, it's imperative to consider the long-term implication for security, for relations, regional stability, both for Egypt and the United States. And this evolving relation shouldn't be, the United States shouldn't let this void and vacuum taking place in the Middle East and in a country like Egypt, because it will be filled by Chinese presence, and we can see what would happen when China fills this void. Let's not forget that China is doing its best to fill every possible void taking place and possess itself as a new global superpower. And let's not forget that with the US withdrawal and leaving a void in the Middle East, China took the initiative and started to broke a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And I strongly believe that countries like Egypt and the United States, we can have to work together to ensure that our shared values and priorities are safeguarded, that the interests of both nations are protected, and maintaining peace and stability in the region, and not allow countries, authoritarian regimes like China or other to disrupt. Thank you for your attention, and I hope I give a clear view of what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have a few questions coming in. Stephen Orlow asks, many nations participating in China's Belt and Road Initiative have found the experience to be a severe disappointment, finding themselves indebted to China in ways that were not anticipated. What has been Egypt's experience in this respect?
We are not that in a horrible situation as other nations, given that the size of the Egyptian economy and the size of the Egyptian market, and also the size of the China influence. What we've been trying during this talk is to raise the concern about what may happen, and these are lessons need to be learned from other countries. Yet, with the massive China investments, withholding a big chunk of the external debt, this might, of course, affect Egypt in the future.
Absolutely. Larry Greenberg asks, is Egypt especially concerned about being dominated by China owing to its financial condition setting in a way that the former USSR imposed?
Not really. If you talk about the public opinion, I can refer you to a poll that took place a poll was conducted by the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, and you can see that the public opinion perceived China as a friend and as a trade partner, as a source of stability, unlike the views toward the United States, and there are a lot of negative views to the United States. This is probably due to the smooth Chinese propaganda and their clear narrative about that we are friends and the win-win and so on. But at the end of the day, as the previous gentleman had been clearly mentioned about the lessons the other countries that had from the Belt and Road Initiative and how it affected them.
Thank you so much. So you spoke about the Egyptian population as a whole, seeing these initiatives in the trade as something good to an extent. Does the government and the governing bodies see the same, or are they working actively against this?
Well, Egypt always trying to take a middle ground and trying to have a balanced relation with different nations, and this is the official statement. And I can tell you that there is some sort of bitterness when it comes to the United States, especially after 2013, when the revolution took place and was ousted of the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Obama administration by that time and the support to the Brotherhood, and by that time there was an ongoing war on terror, and badly needed spare parts for the helicopters that Egypt was deprived from it. Adding to that, a lot of cold shoulder being given to Egypt, over the years by the Democrats and the Democratic Party administration, whether Obama or President Biden. So this creates a little bit of bitterness and a little bit of reluctance when it comes to rely on an ally like the United States, which is still the official narrative that the United States is a great ally. We are allies and friends and can rely on each other. But still, again, when you look at the figure of the bilateral trade, when you look at the closed door talks, you can tell how is it.
Thank you so much. So what exact steps can the United States take, in the opinion of Egyptians, to help to alleviate the China's influence in Egypt and get in better graces, I guess?
Well, I believe there are a few things can be done, but one of them, and here I'm talking from the point of view of the layman or the general public, the discourse itself, the narrative itself. Usually the Egyptians are very sensitive when it comes to dictating to them what they should what they should do or what they shouldn't do. And sometimes the U.S. administration, with all the goodwill in the world, that sometimes it goes and they start to wag fingers, and this doesn't break. Well, the Chinese are going very smoothly and say, we just mind our business, we don't like to intervene, and so on. This is one thing. The other thing, when it comes to the intensify the trade and the investment and the support for Egypt, let's look at the Global Partnership for Infrastructure and Investment, which was an initiative that was launched by the G8 a year ago, something like that. And looking at Egypt's share of this initiative, it funded very small share. Compare this to China Belt and Road Initiative. Compare it to China active engagement in Egypt. So this is one of the areas where we can do that. I can really tell you and tell the audience another sad story, at least for me. Egypt now is working to build its nuclear power plant. It's Baba. It's a huge power plant, and it's done and financed by Rosatom and Russia. And this came after decades of negotiation with the West and the United States. And by the end of the day, the Russians came with a very good deal, facilitating payment with 25 years. And by the end of the day, now we have this nuclear power plant with Russian presence for a quarter century. While if the United States and I'm sorry for blaming the United States for its rigidity, but this is a fact. If they realized the importance of such technology, and if they realized the importance of the need of these technologies, especially for a country expanding and growing like Egypt, that would be done by American companies and have a presence of 25 years here in this new frontier technology for Egyptians, and it could have helped developing a lot of jobs, creating jobs, creating benefits and prosperity for a lot of people.
Understand. So David S. Levine and Jeffrey Norwitz ask, are there any concerns about Chinese treatment and of their Muslim population?
No, because big China propaganda is clear about that. These people are terrorists. They are against the state, and these allegations and these propaganda aligns with what the Egyptians have experienced of Islamic terrorism here in Egypt. So there is a lack of sympathy, and on the contrary, many people perceive that any state have its every right to prevent any terrorist group from breaking on them. But the question, are they terrorists or not? And we know that many of them are innocent people, and they are severely maltreated and violated.
Of course. All right. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you jumping on and taking the time to speak with us today. We've come to the close of our webinar. Thank you again, Mr. Farid, for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure being with you.
Wonderful. Thank you. For our viewers, please join us Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern for an update with Ashley Perry. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful day.